playing tour guide today in this Shanghai laneway full of character, and have a look at this. They're getting the meals ready for the day here in this restaurant, washing the meat in the sink. This gentleman here is kneading out, ni hao. He's kneading out all the dough for the, hello, how are you? You're making the noodles for the day. Okay. Fantastic. This is certainly the traditional view of cuisine in this city, traditional Chinese cuisine. But the thing that we found here is that the appetites are changing very heavily. As the middle class rises, there's an enormous appetite for fine food, fine Western food. Now, I've met a master chef here called David Laris. He's an Australian. He's a sort of a rock star around here, and his restaurants have been incredibly successful. I'm about to sit down as he cooks me an absolute gastronomic delight.
That ready.
Well, this looks fantastic. So what have we got today?
So we've got a little tasting menu. I mean, in this room we normally do anywhere from 12 to 14, 16 courses depending on the day or how I feel. But minimum 10.
This is all very Western and sophisticated.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Western, there's a huge presence of Western dining in China, and in Shanghai particularly, say Shanghai and Beijing predominantly. And finer dining definitely exists in a very big way. It's become a long way, and I've been here at the forefront of the fine dining end and the sort of more cutting edge cuisine for 10 years, and I've seen it go from people looking at what I was doing, just not getting it at all, and thinking to myself, I've made a mistake by coming, to it becoming like an award-winning restaurants and it being full of Chinese. And one thing we've tracked is the growth in the Chinese consumer versus the Western consumer, and it's definitely now over 50% of people are towards a Chinese market.
So that's changed quite
Yeah,
radically.
absolutely. It's been a huge change.
And what is that? Is that the rise of this aspirational middle class that we keep hearing about here? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have the wealthy, affluent Chinese who sort of lead the market. I mean, they've been very strong in terms of having traveled and so on. But then, yeah, it's all about this affluent middle class that some can afford the higher end, but a tremendous growth of the middle class within the Western restaurants, which have become destination. Things like that in the West we might consider as sort of everyday concepts. The Chinese middle class consumer is now coming and trying them as a special night out.
But how rapidly is it growing? You must see it change almost every day.
I don't think anyone's ever seen anything like this in human history. Is the growth of a city like Shanghai and China in general. It's the largest urbanization program ever. The Romans and Greeks didn't come close. And unfortunately, I'm half Greek, so I have to give that one up.
So you're surprised every day when you see the growth of China, aren't you?
You can see I'm excited. I've been here 10 years and my excitement hasn't got any less. In fact, it's increasing. I get up every day and I'm like, wow, what surprises in store for me today. A lot of problems as well, a lot of challenges. But I think if you're the kind of person who enjoys challenges and you like to think on your feet, this is a gold mine for you. And I've been doing. I've started business. I've started companies here. I've had failures, I've had successes, and I get up every day though and I'm like, you know what, today's a new day and there's going to be another deal out there and there's going to be more things that are going to happen, and that keeps you going. And that energy for an entrepreneur or for anyone who's got a spirit of adventure, it's what drives you, and this city is full of people like that.
Thank you very much. And what do we have here?
So here we have a little quail and chestnut soup with mustard jelly.
Okay. Well, it looks absolutely delightful.
I hope you like the level of refinement and so on that we're doing here. And I get, if I don't do it right, I get a lot of complaints from the Chinese customers. They come to expect a certain level.
Is that true? Mm-hmm. Okay.
I mean, they travel there. They're exposed to food. You can't just cheat. You have to do it right.
So don't tell me they send it back.
Not here.
No. Some would be surprised to hear you say that it's easier to do business in China.
I've got some mates who own restaurant groups back home. I won't say, but they tell me there's a lot of challenges, and a lot of challenges that I don't confront. I probably confront other challenges, but I've been able to move. I must say, there's a misperception I think about succeeding in China or doing business in China. Yes, there are a lot of problems. Yes, there's a lot of stuff you have to read between the lines and work it out for yourself. There's not a lot of clear, defined rules on how you do things or how you get things done, but there's an acceptance and an openness that just says, just do it, man, just go and do it. There's a lot less like success bashing here. If you have the spirit to do so, people get behind you rather than bash you. And we have that tall poppy syndrome that we all have to deal with back home sometimes. I don't see it here. It just doesn't exist.
It's interesting because you're embracing what many people fear, and that is the rise and the strength of China and it being an economic superpower.
Yeah, I think embrace it. Don't fight against it. And there's no evil agenda. I think it's just all about, you know, a growth of a country.
Ever think you'd be part of a revolution?
We don't use the word revolution very often here.
Culturally sensitive, but I mean, that's what we're talking about, isn't it?
It's an economic revolution and it's a cultural revolution in regards to, you know, the way that the movement is shifting and the way that people are thinking. I mean, you know, I think the everyday Chinese person is just as normal as any other person on the planet. They have the same, you know, desires, the same wishes, the same feelings. You know, they love their family the same way everyone else does. And I think it's about looking at, you know, the commonness between human beings and not the differences so much. Because when you boil it down and you're actually able to interact one-to-one, you realize actually that you know, we're all the same. You know, and I try to embrace that philosophically as well.
It's a good way to do it.
Yeah, it's your
You
own
have
way.
to.
Yeah. So this is an onion puree with mushrooms, with local mushrooms, and mascarpone cheese, and carrots that have been braised in truffle, and we have a little olive oil powder on top. So this is what's great about this is like all these ingredients, apart from the mascarpone, are from China. So we are able to find truffles here, although they're not the best truffles in the world, I must admit. We can find like quite gourmet mushrooms, and there's guys who are growing them and finding them up in North China and bringing them to us. So it's quite cool.
James Packer is a huge advocate of selling to the Chinese and bringing the middle class to Australia,
Do it.
mostly to attend his casinos. But he says we cannot underestimate the size of this Chinese middle class and their appetite for the things that we do very well in Australia.
Yeah, and everything we do, don't forget, is exotic. You know, we may come here and find the Chinese market exotic. It's the same way the other way around. You know, everything that's in Australia is exotic to everyday Chinese person. So we should exploit that. And we have a lot of cool stuff. I mean, we're a pretty crazy place. You know, we can go outback. We've got all this. I mean, one of the most beautiful countries on the planet. So we should definitely do more. And I think, you know, obviously Packer's right. I mean, they do like a flutter, so if we can get them through the casino, fair enough.
And give them some good food as well.
Yeah, and look at the food we have in Australia.
Yeah.
I mean, how many awesome chefs and awesome restaurants do we have? I think Australia is one of the greatest food cities, food countries, I should say, on the planet. What an awesome market we have.
So food tourism, should we be
Do it.
investing more in that?
Yes, I think that's a big market. You know, leisure, food, you know, and that sort of nature we have. You've got to remember as well, Chinese don't have access to nature the way we do. Even if you're a city boy like me, I mean, I was in the mountains, you know, every other weekend, right? To me, being able to access the mountains and have access to this incredible like landscape is something that doesn't exist here. You have to make it a real effort. If you're a Shanghai person living in one of the flattest places on the planet, below sea level, look around. Do you see any mountains? You know, so we have the Blue Mountains right there in Sydney. You could go to Sydney and then see the mountains. So I think we should take more advantage of that.
So perhaps these Chinese mega cities could present Australia with an amazing opportunity.
I think so.
They're going to want to get out of them
Yeah.
and come and enjoy our backyard.
Fresh air, awesome food, you know, great people. We just got to remember to be friendly.
Because they're positive here, you're saying.
Absolutely, that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Here, everyone's upbeat about what's going on. You know, I think you can speak to anybody in a city like a, you know, as you say, a mega city like Shanghai. It doesn't matter what they're doing. They could be washing pots. They could be cleaning the street. They're going, I have a chance. You know, I have as good a chance as anybody else in this market. If I'm smart enough and I'm willing to work hard enough, I can do more. I liken it to what it must have been to be like in the US in their first boom. You know, when all these immigrants were coming in, and there was just, you know, being an entrepreneur was at the heart and soul of what built America, right? To being the strongest economy on the planet. So that's what it feels like here. You know, you can imagine it, you can dream it, you can find the funding, and you can do it. Doesn't mean you won't fail five times, you know, in the process of doing it.
Yeah.
But if you're resilient enough and your idea is strong enough, and you believe this is a good place to do it. There's an appetite for investment. There's an appetite for new ideas.
We're talking about the land of opportunity.
Absolutely, it is at the moment. I really feel it is. You know, and you know, you have, like I said, you have to be resilient. You have to be able to persevere. But it is a land of opportunity.